Jumana, your work is very much about landscape as sites of memory and imagination. You started with a series in Palestine and you've taken it through Japan and Germany, and now you've had a chance to explore the Welsh landscape with Welsh people, first in Llandudno, but also here we have your work in Cardiff. Can you tell me how this conversation has evolved? It's around water divining, people's relationships with wells.
Yeah, my relationship with water is, or goes back a very long time. It goes back to my childhood and stories that I was told by the female elders around or under olive groves, where they would tell us stories about spirits that are inhabiting the water sources, fresh water sources and streams in Palestine. And they were telling us these as kind of old wives' tales about a spirit in the water that therefore you shouldn't go near this water source. And so we were told these stories almost to make us take some distance and keep away from the water sources. So what my practice has been about is about revisiting and going back to the water sources, saying, okay, you've kept me away long enough, I want to go close. And to go close, I also understand that it's not a solitary action. It's an action of the collective, of asking where's the community today, where's the landscape, whether it's the physical terrain or cultural landscape or the landscape of the mind and the imagination, because stories and folklore and water, it's all interconnected.
And they also used to be gathering places, gathering around the waterhole.
Absolutely, yes. And that's where the stories of the jinn and the ghouls and the water spirits, that's where they would have also been animated during those gathering times. So what I'm trying to do with my practice, especially the collaborative water divining workshops and spoken word performance, what I'm trying to do is to say, let's revisit these water sources and let's revisit these everyday rituals that we had around the gatherings. But to revisit them, not so that we are only keeping them in the past, but actually I would very much like and hope that you can join me as well to pull them out of their past knowing and to hold them in the present as a collective and to engage other water sources with the Palestinian water sources. And the way that's done is through stories. So whether I carry a story of a spring in Palestine and I bring it to Wales, then it's activated through new collaborations with locals in Wales, in Northern Wales, as I've done with Mostyn. And we say, how can we, think about water sources, stories, and our relation to them in the present, but also in the future too, because, yeah.
You found some wonderful stories in Mostyn, didn't you? Some wonderful water sources of legend.
Yes, there are many water sources and legends across all of Wales, and with super grateful to the entire team at Artes Mundi and the curators especially who helped to kind of help me with the research. And then it was through their research that I continued to research and focus on specific ones that I pre-selected and thought, okay, I want to visit these sources, but I want to not visit them just through my, my screen, my computer screen. I want to visit them through physically trying to find them, and again, not to do that alone, but to inspire others who want to take part in a workshop, for them to guide me. Because if I've learned anything, it's that my process of making is a collaborative process of learning as well. I think that's what water teaches me, actually. It teaches all of us that we're constantly flowing and learning and being,
being diverted in interesting new directions, just like a water source.
Yeah.
You're doing a performance at the opening night tomorrow, aren't you?
Yes.
Is there anything you can reveal about that, or is it secret for now?
No, I can reveal that it's a reflection. The performance is a spoken word, reflections on the different water sources that were inspired from the different water sources that we visited over the course of 6 days during the workshop. And so we visited them, but we couldn't find all of them. So it's about writing. Our storytelling on Friday is about our relationship to these sources of water, but also our experience in that moment of being there together as well, and what were we thinking about when we were there? What did that water, or the lack of the water, the presence and absence of that water, how does it reflect the presence and absence of our storying together?
You have some wonderful works on paper around us and wax. Can you just talk us a little bit through how those link in with this theme?
My drawings are the moments in which I can practice in solitude, and especially if I'm working with natural ink or natural materials. I reread the folk stories, the Palestinian folk stories, and as I have done also with the Welsh folk stories, and I try to draw based on these inspirations, inspired by the folk stories. That's where my drawings are. And
so it's a representation, an imaginative representation.
It's very imaginative. It's not an illustrative representation, because sometimes I will repeat on the same story. For example, there's a tale of the orphan's cow, it's called, about orphaned boy and girl who run away. So you will see that quite a lot you will see these orphans, quite a lot represented as different beings. Sometimes they're a deer, sometimes they're a water source, because they become all those things in the story. And so you will see fragments of that in the drawings.
Some of them have the look of almost cave paintings, if I'm looking at the one over your shoulder, for example.
Yeah, my practice really finds its resting place in I guess, a kind of, I don't want to say naive approach, but it's really looking at ways in which questions, like it's questioning where's the innocent approach to viewing the landscape or viewing story. So much of our daily lives today is, I mean, I don't want to speak on behalf of everyone, but I know from the experience I have with working with the beautiful individuals I've worked with, so much of our experience is already burdened with whether it's daily life or our economic things or political things and diaspora, occupation. So much of it is we're burdened and we're carrying these stories in us. So it makes visiting a landscape, a water source, or even it makes our imagination so limiting. And so I want to go back to this place of innocence, like of saying, even
like
if
a
it's
child.
Not, yeah, exactly. Of saying, like, can we revisit the source and can we look at our culture, our heritage? Because these stories and these waters, they represent who we are, our heritage. And they're also asking us, who do we want to be as a culture, as a heritage? And we can be anything we want to be through the stories that we can make and unmake. We don't have to always follow stories that are imposed. It's a long process, and maybe that's also why I like to work a very slow process. And so, like with the beeswax, for example, that wax was used because we lit candles at holy sites near a natural water source across villages in Palestine. That practice is rarely ever, done anymore. But when I was speaking to the elders in a village during my residency at Saki in 2021, in Kenya, the elders there reminded me, but we used to carry candles and we used to leave them as offerings. So I started to think about, how can the practice of making art then also collectively, what offering can we, give to the community, or even in the imaginative sense, to the water source that actually has now become dry or is now being thieved, by illegal settlement. So where can we revisit these daily small acts of devotion or ritual? So I thought, okay, we've collected, the we is the water diviners community that I initiated in Kenya. And so I asked them to just collect objects that they find around the water sources. And then we try to make them again in wax. But we are constantly recharging them with an enchantment or a phrase of enchantment. And that's what I'm continuously doing. And I love this kind of, because it's reflecting water, where it's constantly flowing, it's constantly being recharged. Even when it is dry and endangered, there is still hope for ways in which we can think of recharging it, respiriting it.
And you have wonderful little poems or incantations next to some of these, which by the way I've seen them displayed, it looks like you replace or revisit or reimagine every time you display them.
Yes, I do. I love to do that. And I think at Mostyn I was really imagining how can the entire room become almost like a water map. And that's why I wanted to place them and to imagine, oh yes, these were found closer to that spring, and those ones on that wall were nearer to that spring. Or, of course, it's very imaginative. I'm not, the visitor, the viewer, the participant doesn't need to know those details. But it's the first time that I'm showing them in that way at Mostyn, and I really wanted them to, rather than thinking about them as intimate, conclave, a table that you approach and you read the charms, as though there's something like secret, I wanted really to say, no, they belong to the landscape, and at Mostyn it's a different exhibition of them, because I really wanted this, I wanted them to embrace the space. Yeah.
That does definitely come across. It feels like you're igniting, as we said, that child's imagination, so it triggers that in the viewer. Thank you, it's a lovely show, two lovely shows.
Thank you so much, thank you.